This is a rather awkward position to be putting in nuts and bolts. Solar panel. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Matt and I've been living on the road full time for the past 2.5 years and creating fishing content full time for about the past 18 months. So I guess this all kind of started when I was 16. I actually left high school early. I passed the New Zealand curriculum for year 12 and decided to drop out. I then went on to get a job full-time at a supermarket, of all things. I know it's probably not the most glorious thing of all, but I didn't know what I was doing with my life and I kind of wanted to just get some coin in the bank. And after 6 months of that, I stumbled across what I call Sheila. That was my first van. I bought that van as a weekend mission, sort of weekend warrior, and started sort of cruising around on my days off work. And after another few months, I came to the conclusion that, well, stocking shelves in a grocery store was not for me, so decided to quit that job and then went on to renovate Sheila a little bit more, got her a bit more, you know, trip worthy, and went off on a weekend mission. And that weekend mission then sort of snowballed into 2 years of full-time living on the road, only really returning home for you know, family birthdays and Christmases. And that kind of opened my eyes to what life had to offer. You know, beautiful places just like this and, well, some really, really awesome fishing. Did I mention I'm addicted to fishing? Oh my God! Holy smokes! Bro! Now it is that very addiction that has led me to where I am now, creating this YouTube channel, being able to connect with all of you really awesome people, and well, taking me to some incredible places, and also giving me a lot of time to think about exactly what it is I'd do differently if I ever built my dream van, which, funnily enough, I'm now sitting in. So after a lot of time and effort, a lot of frustrations, a lot of planning, and a lot of building actually, I've come to be sitting in what is my dream home. So I'm very proud of what I've achieved, and there's a lot of cool little elements designed into this van to make it all sort of work for what I do. So pretty excited to give you guys a tour. Let's get straight into it. I'll start with what's on the outside. So this van is a 2010 Toyota Hiace. It's a 4-wheel drive diesel model. I bought it secondhand with 246,000 kilometers on the clock. Now, yes, I do know that that seems like a lot of miles or a lot of kilometers, but if you know anything about the Toyota Hiace, you'll know the reputation they have. These things will run for 1,000,000 kilometers, honestly, especially the diesel models. And because in New Zealand, they're the most common trade vehicle, they're really easy to get serviced and they're just known as a reliable workhorse. Now, a funny story about this van is I actually bought it thinking I was buying a rear-wheel drive or 2-wheel drive Toyota Hiace. I got it checked by a vehicle inspector and everything came back really good, so pulled the trigger, bought the van, and the first thing I did was take it to my mechanic to get the cam belt changed. And well, my mechanic puts it on the lift and he's like, "Oh bro, I didn't realize you bought a 4-wheel drive." And I was like, "Neither did I." So jumped under the van while it was on the lift, and sure enough, there's a drive chain and a differential, and well, I've scored myself a 4-wheel drive van for the price of a 2-wheel drive, which I'm pretty stoked about. Now, I've actually jumped up on the roof of the vehicle here just to show you guys the modifications to the outside of this van. Now, the first thing you'll notice is the 3 roof racks down the center of the van. Now, these are obviously going to be very important for me because we've got the Kayak up here. Now, you'll notice throughout this whole design, the Kayak is sort of built into the van in a way. Like, everything around the design has been done with kayak fishing in mind. I think that's really important. So whenever you're building a van, you want to think about what you're using it for and what you're doing with it. Other additions to the roof of this van is obviously my massive solar panel. Now, the reason I've gone for such a large solar panel is being a full-time content creator, always on a laptop, I'm using a lot of power, and also as a full-time fisherman, I'm often needing to keep a lot of fish cold. So I've got quite a large fridge. Now the final thing you'll notice about the roof of the van is obviously this big pipe connected to my roof racks. Now that is my solar shower slash washdown system. It holds about 25 liters of water. It warms up in the sun so I can wash down myself, and more importantly wash down my kayak and all of my fishing gear so that nothing rusts. Honestly, the fishing gear often gets priority over myself when it comes to being clean. I will be honest, it is not quite as simple as just a pipe strapped on the roof. There is a little bit more to it that makes it really, really awesome. I have upgraded it from the last setup I had, but I'll get into that a little bit later when we get into the electronics. Now, in terms of the driving side and the cab of this vehicle, I've tried to keep everything really low key, so I haven't really done any modifications to the front of the van. Kind of just tried to keep it looking like a tradie van, so looking like a work van, because whilst this is a camper van, you don't necessarily want everyone knowing it's a camper van and that you're living in here. You want some sort of aspect of safety and stealth when you are living on the road. So everything pretty stock standard. 2 coffee cups to make it look like there's a couple of work blokes in here. Only thing we've really got in the front here is my Edge fishing boots, which I use for cold days like this while I'm out and about walking around the rocks. Don't want to get feet wet, and don't want mosquitoes biting me. Oh, there is one other thing in here, and that is this thing. So I may or may not have run over a GoPro whilst trying to film a glory shot of this vehicle. Actually, I didn't run it over, someone else ran it over before I could even drive past it, and unfortunately ejected the SD card. So the SD card is in the bush somewhere, and we will never get to see that footage. In terms of this kitchen space, I really did battle with exactly how I was going to design it. I see a lot of people on the internet with their small vans. They like to do the big pull-out kitchen that all, you know, pulls out on the draw runners. But there is a really big drawback to that, and that is, first of all, it can be really hard to access from inside the vehicle if it's raining and it's not a beautiful day outside like it is today. And the other drawback is parking space. It's something that a lot of people don't think about, but say there was another car parked here and then I went to pull out my slide out kitchen, it wouldn't quite work, would it? So what I settled on instead is simply just a wee fold out bench top here. So we can fold that out and we get a nice little table for working outside. It's perfect height to, you know, prepare food, cut up things, and then that sort of leads into this large L-shaped bench top in here. Now moving into the kitchen, I think the first thing you notice is this big gap I've got in between my cabinetry. Now this is actually an idea I stole off a guy called Jake Edmonds. He's got his own YouTube channel, he's from Australia. I have no idea who he is, but I watched a couple of his videos and found them really helpful. And the reason I've gone with this big gap as dead space is it's actually an area to store my backpack. So I've actually got a couple of hooks in here, and it's just really nice to have a little bit of empty space to, well, there's always going to be something when you're living in a small space where you just want to biff it away. Like, you don't want to put it away, you don't want to pack it, you just want somewhere to, you know, throw it when you come into the van. So for me, that's always been a backpack. So I've actually got a hook in there and now a special place to hang it. On the other side, I've also got sort of tea towels and miscellaneous things hanging up there, some scissors, a knife sharpener, and in the back I've also got an Anderson plug in case I ever want to use something like a 12-volt toasty maker, which I don't have at the moment, but you can get sort of 12-volt accessories that require an Anderson plug. In terms of drawers, I've got 4 drawers down here and 1 drawer up here. Now these are all on push to open drawer slide, so we just push and they come open. This one here, I know you guys are going to ask what's in all of my drawers, so this one is spices as well as some miscellaneous things like a spatula. If we come over to this side, the top one is all of my dry food, so we've got cans and containers and some more seasonings. And then another thing you're probably wondering is, where do I cook? Where is my stove? And that is where the second drawer down comes to. So if we push this one open here, we've actually got a little locking tab in here and a full-blown cooking setup. So we can now prepare food really easily. And the reason I've done this is sometimes in the morning you just want to make coffee, and coffee is really important for me, but the chore of, you know, getting out your gas cooker, unpacking it from the box, setting it up. When it's early in the morning and you want to make a coffee and you want to go fishing, you want to make it streamlined. So I've done it like this so that it's literally as simple as waking up, pushing this, and we can make a coffee. In the fourth drawer, we've got two really large drawers here. This one is pots and pans and plates and bowls. You'll actually see there's no pan in there at the moment because I haven't yet found a pan that fits in here well. Ideally, I want to get one with a removable handle, but they're very expensive and I'm a little bit tight on funds at the moment, so hopefully I can find one that suits. If anyone knows any good brands, then let me know down in the comments below. And fourth drawer down here is just more pantry storage, so rolled oats, onions, potatoes, olive oil, all of that good stuff in the bottom one there. Now if we come across to the right hand side, we've got a cupboard in here. Now this cupboard is actually holding all of my utensils. So you'll see just stapled on there is a bit of fabric, and this is where I store chopsticks, spoons, knives and forks, all of that good stuff. And inside of this cabinet we've got a couple of shelves that are holding some taller items like dish soap, we've got lighter refills, spare gas cans, Dettol spray, all of that stuff. And in behind here you'll actually notice there's my water tanks and plumbing system. Speaking of plumbing, as you can see in the corner here, I've got a full-blown sink and running water system. So this faucet is pretty cool. It is just like one that you'd see at home, although it's got a pull-out nozzle. Now the reason I've gone with the pull-out faucet is because, as you can see, when I'm sitting on the end of the bed, the faucet is quite a reach forward. So the ability to pull her out, and if we need to fill up a cup or a pot, you know, it just makes life a little bit easier being able to get the water where I need it rather than climbing forward all the time. It also means that if I ever need to like wash my hair or hose down my face, I can open up the slide door and do that from outside. Now in terms of the sink itself, the first thing you notice is the custom cover. Now this doubles as my chopping board. I just made this out of an old bamboo cutting board that I refinished, resanded, giving me that little bit extra bench space, and yeah, dual purpose. So obviously extra bench space when I need it, and also an extra cutting board when I need it. So this is pretty much a bog standard stainless steel camper van sink. They're available to purchase at your local Burns Co. And one thing I'll say with a camper van sink is just make sure you don't go too small. I know that a lot of people want to save the space, but if your sink is so small that you can't fit your pot in there, you can't wash your dishes, then why do we even have a sink in the beginning? So make sure that you get one that is deep enough to fit your pot, fit your pans, and actually do your dishes. Now powering my entire freshwater system is the 12-volt Seaflow water pump. Now that is running off my house batteries obviously, and that is what is pumping the water out of the 40-litre freshwater tank I've got in the back through the faucet, and then when we come out of the sink we're draining through an airlock into the 25-litre water tank we've got here. Now you may notice there's a bunch of hoses and a bunch of complicated stuff in the plumbing system, and that is to comply with the New Zealand self-containment standards. So if you're from New Zealand, then you probably know about the green sticker self-containment, about venting your freshwater tanks. There's a bunch of hoops you have to jump through in order to get that self-containment certification, but it's required if you ever want to go freedom camping and not pay for your campgrounds, which is definitely worth having, although it is a little bit of a hassle to get that cert. While I am back here, I should mention this is where I'm storing my filleting board for filleting all my fish, and also beneath here, which used to be a doorstep, is now where I store the jack stand in case I ever get a flat tire obviously, and a spare fresh water hose for refilling water tanks. Now I think the centerpiece of this entire kitchen is the large upright fridge. So this is a 65-litre upright caravan fridge from Brass Monkey. So after living in my old van with a standard sort of portable chest fridge style, this is a real luxury. It is so nice to be able to open the door and see where everything is, as opposed to the old chest fridge I had where everything would kind of get squashed in the bottom and you could never find anything. So this is the Brass Monkey 65-litre. It can run off 12 or 24 volts. I've currently got it set to 12 volts because my whole system is 12 volts. and it's even got a really large freezer section up in the top here, which is just absolute game changer. Now I feel like now is a pretty good time to thank the sponsor of today's video, and that is the legends over at Burnsco. They have hooked me up with not only this 12-volt fridge freezer, but the majority of the 12-volt electronics that you see running throughout this van. So if you guys want to support the company that supports me, then make sure to go shop with your local Burnsco, assuming you're in New Zealand, of course. Now on to the final and one of my favorite features about this kitchen, and that is the slide out knife cabinet. So in here I've got everything I need when I come off the water to fillet and process my fish. So you can see I've got the range of edge filleting knives as well as a kitchen knife, all on a magnetic mount there. We've got storage for all of our snap lock bags that you guys see me using to keep the fillets in before they obviously go in the fridge. You can actually see in there now we've got a bunch of fresh kingfish, which is primo. Now, because I know I'm going to get the question, this entire van has been built from poplar plywood, and I've gone with poplar plywood because it's really lightweight. The one thing that you want to keep in mind when you are building a camper van is the weight of your conversion, because the last thing you want to do is get carried away with over constructing things, making it really heavy, and then you know, your gas mileage, your vehicle handling, everything goes out the door if your conversion's too heavy, especially when you're carrying a lot of gear like I am myself. So everything from the countertop to the cabinetry to the ceiling panels is built from a combination of 18mm, 12mm, 6mm and 4mm poplar plywood, and the countertop itself has had 2 coats of epoxy and 4 coats of polyurethane, as well as a water-based stain, which is how I've got the finish that I've got. It was a bit of a hassle, and if you are going to build your own van, I highly recommend that you try and find pre-finished plywood panels, because the amount of time that I spent painting, sanding, priming, polyurethaning, epoxying is kind of absurd. So if there's one bit of advice I have for anyone looking to build their own van, it's spend a little bit of extra money and buy pre-finished plywood. Alright, final thing before we convert the kitchen into my office space, and that is the roof vent you see here. So this is one of the largest upgrades I've gone with from my last van, and that is, well, a proper ventilation system. So this is the Fiamma 28 turbo vent. Obviously we can open and close it through that turntable there. We've got a little wee switch here that turns our fan on. We can have it pulling air in, or if we flip the switch the other way, we can have it pulling air out. Now this thing was a little bit daunting to install. It required me cutting a massive hole in the van. And there we go, a giant hole cut in the roof of my van. But I'm very glad that I did, because a ventilation system when you're living in a small space is absolutely critical. Just from the moisture coming out of your breath while you sleep at night, things get damp, things get wet, and that can cause mold, it can cause all sorts of problems. So yeah, having that ventilation in there is just a huge win when it comes to a comfortable, clean and dry living space. Alright, so this is one of my proudest design features of this entire van, and that is the convertible office space. So as a full-time content creator, this was kind of a absolute must for me, to have the ability to work from inside the van, all self-contained and comfortably. So for the past 2 years I've been sitting on a bed whilst I did all of my editing. I often edit for 10 hours a day, so being able to have a seat with proper back support is a massive win. Now it has always been kind of a big debate in the van life community to do a fixed bed or not a fixed bed, and I like to call this my semi-fixed bed, because I don't really have to unmake my bed. It was always sort of a daunting task having to make your bed at the end of the night where you have your whole, you know, converting into a dinette area. Not really my cup of tea, so just having this little simple space where all I have to do is pull the duvet off, flip up a seat, and I'm in business was a massive win for me. And it was sort of something that kind of tripped me up in the design process. I was really thinking about how I was going to do this table and how I was going to do everything, but settling on just simply a table that slides in and slides out is where we came to with the design, and I'm pretty happy with how it works. So I've also inside here got storage to store my laptop, so laptop, chargers, mouse, GoPro accessories. It's a bit of a mess at the moment, but that is how we convert into a living space. And the final thing at the end of this countertop is my little Wii control panel here. I've got two switches on the end. This one here is running my 12-volt water pump, and I do like that these switches have a little light on the bottom of them so that I never forget to turn them off when I go to bed at night or I'm driving down the road. And this switch here powers the LED light strip I've got under my countertops, as well as in this little nook here, which I'll get to a bit later. Along from those two switches, I've got a PWM controller. Now this is a little dimmer style switch that controls the speed of my fan. So if I turn my fan on, see, it's pretty loud when it's on full bore, but if I come down here and twist this knob, that is gonna slow down the fan to a really quiet, whisper quiet speed. So that was a little feature that this fan did not come with. It didn't have a variable speed motor, so just a quick little search on AliExpress, I managed to find this little PWM, and yeah, this just controls the speed of the fan. Next along from that, we have our PowerTech battery monitor. This is what's monitoring the current flowing in and flowing out of my batteries, as well as the state of charge. It all goes through a shunt in the negative wire. It's a little bit hard to explain, but basically it tells me how much percent my battery bank is on. So right now we can actually see I'm on 100%. If I go here, I can see I'm bringing in 0.3 amps of charge from the solar panel. That is because the charge controller has tapered off and we put it into float. I can also go into my battery voltage. It's kind of fun to geek out about things, what the solar panel's doing, what the charge is doing, all of that. Aside from that, we've got a 12-volt accessory socket and a USB-C charger. Now beneath this pillow here is where the brains of this camper van are stored. If we lift up this panel, we can see our 200 amp battery bank. These are the PowerTech lithium batteries from Burnsco. And then we've got our charge controllers from Victron. Again, everything in this box is available to purchase at your local Burnsco. But we've gone with the 30 amp DC to DC charger that basically puts charge into the house batteries when we're driving down the road. And over this side here, we've got the Victron MPPT 30. This is our solar charge controller, and I really love the Victrons because you can actually access all of the information on your phone and see just exactly what your solar panel or your DC to DC charger is doing. Now beneath these two charge controllers is a series of circuit breakers and fuses and whatnot, just to protect the system. And I've also actually built in a cooling system to this battery bank here. So because it's all in such a confined space and the charge controllers are a little bit closer together than I'd like, there's actually a series of 12-volt computer fans, one there, and there's actually another one in here that are on a temperature controlled sensor, so that when the chargers warm up, it's basically whenever there's a reason for the battery bank to be getting warm, those two computer fans turn on and extract the air from the thing. You can see there's actually a little temperature thermometer probe right in here. That is what is responsible for that cooling system. Now I did build this entire electrical system myself, and whilst it may seem complicated, once you understand the basic premise of DC or direct current, in this instance 12 volt, it's really just connecting positive and negative wires. It is rather time consuming, but it's not rocket science. And because I should mention I don't have an inverter, I don't have AC power in this van, it's all relatively straightforward and pretty easy to do. Continuing on with the theme of technology, I'll open up this drawer and show you our rubbish bin. No, but in all seriousness, this drawer here, we've got our rubbish bin. I store a few little bits and bobs like a broom and bags and wipes and stuff like that, and then in the back here we've got some camera equipment for easy access when I get off the water or getting on the water with a kayak. Obviously setting up GoPros and all of that stuff, changing accessories, we want that to be at easy reach so I don't jump inside the van smelling like fish, covered in fish guts if I've just been filleting, or I don't know, just getting off the water covered in fish. Pretty typical for me, unfortunately. Now, speaking of fish, we'll move up to the ceiling where I've got my custom rod storage. This is all constructed out of a timber called Paulownia, and anyone who knows much about Paulownia knows that it's a really lightweight, really awesome wood to work with. But the reason I've actually used it is because, well, it's what custom handmade wooden fishing lures are made of. Like all of the high-end topwater lures that you see for fishing lures is made of Paulownia. So I figured that it was only right to show my fishing rods a little bit of respect and keep with the theme and make it out of Paulownia. So the rods can simply just slide out of those hooks there, and then if we just pull them forwards, it is really nice to have them all fully rigged and ready at any time. So like for instance now, if I saw some fish splashing on the surface, I could grab a fully rigged rod, run down there and catch fish. Now alongside the bed we have the custom cabinetry for all of my clothes storage. Now this was a bit of a mission to build, I won't lie to you. It's all fitted to the curvature of the van, and every door is built again from scratch out of poplar plywood. Inside these doors I have room for all of my clothes, so I've got up the top here, I don't know, beanie, socks, track pants, board shorts, I think that's a socks and undies cabinet, t-shirts. I have for some reason a gazillion t-shirts in my storage. And then in the center here we've got sort of a miscellaneous cupboard. I keep my vacuum cleaner, some documents, hard drives, a hairbrush, all sorts of stuff in there. Now below the 5-door cabinetry we've got a few more cubby holes. These are just for storing larger miscellaneous items. I think I've got some hoodies, some spare blankets and everything. That is dropping down around the wheel well of the vehicle, again just trying to utilize every little bit of space. Now going along with the theme of making the most of every little bit of space, I've actually got a switch over here that controls an LED strip light mounted in here. That just makes the space, although it is a little bit tight in there, it makes it easier to see what you are grabbing, like whether it's late night, early morning, or even today. Just getting that little bit of extra illumination makes it easier to find what you need. So in this instance, a towel is what I've grabbed. Now moving across to the other side of the van, we've got a wee little feature that I really love, my little wee storage nook. Now this was a little bit tricky to build. It was basically like a recessed box that goes in between the wall framing that goes on before the wall panels. You kind of have to think ahead, and then it's all trimmed out with a little bit of pine, stained and varnished and all of that good stuff. But I really do love how it makes this van feel, the sort of recessed lighting in there, and then obviously the centerpiece, a wee little model boat that came out of my family's attic or storage. I don't know, I found it somewhere in my family's thing. But yeah, I'm really stoked with how that little feature, I feel like it kind of ties it all together, makes it feel like home. But it's not only home, it is also a workstation. So if we move around to the back of the van, I'll show you what that means. So the rear of this van is what I like to consider the tool shed, although my tools are not really tools in the typical sense. You see, for me, my tools take the shape of an absolutely absurd amount of fishing gear. So I have 2 drawers that are 1.4 meters long, full to the brim with fishing gear. Now when I said this entire van was designed around kayak fishing, I was not joking. The entire left hand side drawer is filled simply with kayak equipment. As you can see, I've got my tackle pod for the Viking Reload. Now that is the reloading pod that drops in and out of the kayak. It's a modular system with all of my tackle, and it was really important for me to be able to store that inside the van. In my last van I had to store it on the roof with the kayak, and it was a nightmare having to pack it full of gear every night and every morning before I went fishing. So being able to load this pod the night before with all of my tackle, my soft baits, my rigs, my sounder, as you can see I've got the rudder in there for the kayak at the moment. Everything that I need for a day's fishing goes into that pod and then drops into the kayak the morning of. Aside from the tackle pod in here, we've got my seat cushion for the kayak. I've got a two-piece paddle and a paddle case at the moment. I've got all of my fishing clothes, wet weather gear, stored inside the back there. I've got camera equipment like camera booms, all the good stuff I need for the kayak. And then on the other side is stuff that doesn't come on the water with me, aside from the life jacket I've got in here. So in this side, I've got a life jacket, I've got a few little tools for repairing things, mainly repairing things on the kayak. I've got an absolutely absurd amount of fishing gear. I've got leaders in here, I've got soft baits in here, I've got fish bites down the bottom, I've got tackle boxes all labeled. So we've got assist hooks, jig hooks, treble hooks, trolling lures, jigs, topwater lures, jig heads, hooks, terminal tackles, sinkers. What else have we got? We've got methylated spirits for cleaning down terminals. We've got tackle guard spray, knife sheets, everything that I could ever possibly need and more in terms of fishing tackle. And then in the back here, we've finally got our gas cans for our gas stove. We've got a box full of, I'm not even sure what this is. Oh, a box from the boys at Molossi. Hopefully some cool content coming from these lures soon. Just stuff for working on the van, really. Little portable air compressor, all of that good stuff packed into the back of the van. So much storage in this van, which is absolutely critical for life on the road, because I literally have to bring everything with me, including the kitchen sink, wherever I go. Now to the left hand side of our bed, we've got another 12-volt accessory socket, and then a little cunning thing that I've done here is made a bedside table. Now, a bedside table doesn't sound all that cunning, but inside the bedside table there's a storage pocket for a plethora of charging cables. If you're anything like me, you always have a ridiculous amount of charging cables and you always need somewhere to store them. So I figured in the bedside table itself was not a bad idea. And it doesn't end there. This bedside table actually can flip up, and I've got a magnet up in the top corner there that holds it in place, so that if I ever need to access what I've got down here whilst I'm in bed, I can do that. I can also sit up that way. So this all just drops back down and clips into place. Beneath here, I've got a little bit of empty space for just throwing bags that I need in there. Down this edge here, I've actually got a space specifically built for my dirty laundry. Now, one thing that I did not take into consideration when I did the renovations on my last van, I had places to store my clean clothes, but not my dirty clothes. And well, you always need just as much space for dirty clothes as clean clothes. So really important design element was to have a place just to chuck my dirty laundry. Now, earlier in this video, I mentioned that the water pipe on the roof was not quite as simple as just a water pipe, and that it has been modified since my last van. So what I meant by that is if I come into here and I can grab out this cable here. Now, inside that water pipe is now a submersible pump that pressurizes the entire system. So I simply open up this accessory port here, plug the cable in, and that plugs into there like so. Grab out my hose, and this just connects into the top of the water pipe. Hit this wee little switch on the cable that I've built. That powers on the submersible pump inside the pipe, and we now have a pressurized washdown system. And because of the coiled hose, I can walk as far as 6 meters away and still wash down things. Now, not only does that make it a hell of a lot nicer when you're having your own shower with a good amount of water pressure, it also makes it a hell of a lot easier to wash down your fishing gear and your kayak after a long day on the water, because you really do want to just pressure wash all of the salt off of your gear. Just a gravity feed wasn't quite enough, I found, in the last van. Now, the very final aspect to this van in the rear are the blackout curtains. Now, as much as I would love to say that I built this entire van from scratch by myself, I have to give credit where credit is due to my amazing mother for kindly offering to sew me a set of double insulated blackout curtains for both the rear of the van, the two side windows, and the curtain that separates the cab from the living space. And on the topic of insulation, I should mention that this whole van has been insulated. I insulated it with a closed cell adhesive foam, which has both acoustic and thermal properties. So she's nice and cozy warm during these winter months, which makes a huge difference when you're living in here. And well, in terms of the entire build process, I will say it was quite the learning experience as someone who doesn't have a whole lot of experience building, especially not building around curves and complex shapes that you have in a van. Yeah, it was definitely a learning experience, definitely a lot of long hours and late nights, and a lot, can I stress this, a lot of frustrations, and probably a few too many swear words screamed out into the abyss. But I'm very, very stoked with the result that I've got here. It kind of feels like my own little apartment on wheels. Now, I'm sure you guys are going to have a lot of questions about other things that I've missed. I'm sure that there are aspects that you want to know that I haven't answered in this video, and that is what the comment section is for down below. So drop a comment down below. I will try and do my very best to answer all of your comments. But I just want to say to anyone who has been following the channel, thank you very, very much. You've made all of this possible. I also want to say a big thank you to Burnsco, and if you're new to the channel and you want to see exactly where this van takes me on the, I will stress this is a fishing channel, not a van life channel, but there are van life aspects within that. If you want to see where this van takes me fishing and takes me exploring and just see the journey that this van takes me on, then hit the subscribe button. I really do appreciate every single last one of you. And as always, I hope that you guys are out there living your best life, doing whatever it is that makes you happy. And until next time, tight singing lines. Cheers for watching, guys.